I can't believe I'm saying this after so many games this year have really blown me away to the point of being like, damn, if that ain't one of the Game of the Year potential candidates, I don't know what is. But the more I play of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the more I say this very well could be my Game of the Year by the time I reach the finish line and really soak in everything that this world has to offer. Now, as someone who's new to the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, I did end up purchasing both 1 and 2 and plan on playing those after I complete my run in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This world is not only visually and technologically impressive for what I thought the Switch could handle, just the whole idea of this JRPG and the general quest of trying to better the world, right? One of those typical stories, or at the very least, you think are typical on paper, turns out to be way more compelling and thought-provoking than I initially thought it would be. Now, in terms of anyone who's worried about seeing spoilers or anything in terms of plot-specific moments, I'm not going to show any footage outside of the very beginning of Chapter 3. That's where I'm honestly stuck at right now because I'm just exploring every nook and cranny of this beautiful world. If you don't want to see any gameplay mechanics, any story moments at all, you know, obviously you could just listen to the video if you want, but obviously I'm saying this game is worth playing. So in terms of main late game stuff, not going to show that. I'm currently stuck right at the beginning of Chapter 3 here, and I'm just loving every minute of exploring this beautiful world. And as someone who recently came off of Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, that game I thought was technically impressive because the number of enemies that were on screen at any given time, and the fact that in docked mode, the Switch never struggled to keep up with it, I thought that would be one of the highlights for me of the Switch this year, just to see how far that game was able to push the boundaries. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came in and say, hey, you know that wonder of Zelda Breath of the Wild, how big the world is, and you thought, damn, is there any way that they could push the Switch farther than that? Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came in and said, hold my beer. Because this game, while yes, I would say it does have pop-ins, it does have some jitters and stutters here and there, but this game, for being as big as it is, and the fact that it has so many monsters, every which way you look, these giant, beautiful beasts that are ferocious and you just want to go fight them every single time. The number of things that are on screen and the just scope of this world is absolutely breathtaking, and I am really interested to see if the next Xenoblade Chronicles game could honestly run on the Switch, because it honestly feels like 3 tapped out what this console can do, because it is absolutely pushing this thing to the limit without actually breaking itself. Now, this game basically follows a typical story on paper. You have a group of characters who basically are stuck with a 10-year limit. And after that limit, they pass on and live to fight, they're born to fight. But then obviously some stuff happens which forces them on a path of changing the world and ultimately maybe showing people that there's other ways to live. The thing that gets me with this story is that the characters on paper initially, when you're meeting them, whether it's Noah, Mio, all these other people, you just think, I've seen these before, and they're fun personalities. What got me is for being so early into the main story still, I have grown to love each and every one of them so much that I really couldn't see this game working without either one of these 6 main characters here. And yes, there's plenty of characters you meet who end up as little hero bonuses that they'll tag along at times, or among the dozens and dozens of side characters you'll get introduced to. But it's just the way the characters wear their hearts on their sleeve, and you can have characters like Noah who really are just trying to say, if it's an enemy soldier, I don't care, I want to help them pass on. If there's a way to avoid combat, I want to do that. These archetypes that you've seen time and time again, whether it's JRPGs or anime, and you typically are like, okay, it's a goody two-shoes, but the way they go about presenting these characters and what they've been through, and the clever uses of flashbacks, it made me really love them, to the point of like characters like Noah and Mio were easily my favorites, and usually I would probably say they would be my least favorite in a story like this. But the meat and potatoes of a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is without a doubt the combat and the world. Now, the combat in Xenoblade Chronicles kind of functions like an MMO where you have your basic auto attack, so you'll draw your weapon and then you'll attack them, and they'll do their basic auto attack. There's obviously a lot of systems at play, such as canceling, so as soon as someone hits with their auto attack, you can use one of your abilities, which then makes that ability extra strong. Then you also have all these individual mechanics that will slowly get sprinkled throughout the game, and honestly, it was surprising how even, dozens of hours into what should be the main story or even the quests surrounding it, it was still finding new ways to implement new mechanics without it feeling overwhelming. Often games like these, you will just have so much information that it's easy to overlook so many mechanics that could be the difference between getting your ass handed to you at a boss fight dozens of times versus maybe only dying a couple of times because you remember all those finer mechanics. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 understands that there's a lot to this world, a lot to remember, and a lot of information, so rather than throwing it all at you all at once, it lets you experience it in small little bites. The first chapter of this game I was playing and I was like, damn, this is a pretty complex system. I'm really enjoying it. It has a very fun MMO style system, and then as I progressed throughout these missions, it got to the point that I felt like I was in Evangelion and I was piloting my own Ava, and I was like, this is the coolest shit ever, and then they would still continue to introduce more. My favorite mechanic in the game, hands down, was these chain attacks. So there's a little meter that will build up over time, and if it's there, you press the plus, and your characters go into this kind of like standstill where you get to choose which one of them. They'll have a specific ability, you'll use another character's attack, and you'll just build up and do tens of thousands of damage at the early game, mind you, with these attacks. I can only begin to imagine the hundreds of thousands of damage you'll do when you get to the mid to late games. And then you can have a break, because often during these big boss fights, you'll be doing well, but you'll notice, damn, my character's getting close to death, and, the Ouroboros, which is kind of like your Ava mecha little units that are really, really fun to use. They can work wonders to keep you alive, but sometimes that's not enough. And then you add in a chain attack and it saves your ass. And if you have a healer on your team, in the middle of this kind of freeze where the enemy can't do shit, you can actually heal yourself if you use one of their healing abilities. And just the number of things that it makes you learn, but it never feels overwhelming, is incredible. One of my favorite things is the class mechanics. There's over 20 different classes that you can give to any of your characters. And the whole idea is that once they reach level 10 with any class, the game will say, hey, you should go switch to a different class. Initially, when they started saying that, I thought, no, I like the class I'm using. But there's a reason for this. Once you get to level 10, you'll master an ability for that class. So I think the best example is, imagine if you're playing as a tank level character. You master it and you get this really good tank ability, so a big smash ability. But then you switch over to being a healer for that character. Healers are going to have a lot less health points than a tanky fighting class. The issue that you'll probably have is that because you're a healer, not only are you obviously a lot less health points, you're mainly going to be focused in healing and buffing your party. But by giving them one of those master class abilities from, say, your tank class, you then in return have a bit more fighting power, and you can kind of see where the experimentation comes into play. Maybe you're playing with a general fighter, but you would like to have a healing ability or a buff ability, right? There's all these different experimentations, and the idea of actually wanting to switch every character over once they got to level 10 and among all the different hero characters you meet across this journey, there's a lot of fun characters. At one point where I'm at, like, I ended up feeling like I was a Reaper from Overwatch. There's just a lot of fun experimentation, and the simple slow burn style of this almost MMO style combat as you control 6 different characters, but it really feels seamless. And the good thing about it is that the AI are actually, they're competent. If you leave them and just focus on controlling one character, they'll switch into their Ouroboros form. They'll do all these different things, and you have some basic commands that will give them a bit of a nudge in the direction you want them to do. And it's really fun seeing how all these wild mechanics, it never feels like it's just there to be a fun gameplay mechanic. They tie it into the story, and the fact that the story and combat go hand in hand to explore this beautiful world. I was always angry in the earlier portions of this game because I just want to explore. I want to go into every nook and cranny, and he'd be like, no, we gotta come back later. The game does end up opening up and allowing you to go wherever the hell you want eventually, but in the early portions when you're still kind of being, I guess, hunted and you're still new to what this world is gonna be, it makes sense that it tries to guide you a little bit towards certain places, and then the game starts opening up and backtracking has never been more fun. I think these games, it's understandable now after experiencing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and just a small portion of it, mind you. Granted, I think I'm around 35 hours into the game as it stands. These games can last so long if you let them. But for me, it's always been a series that I've been fascinated by, but I've never felt the push, the urge to go check them out. And while yes, I know each of the 3 on the Switch they do have their own fan bases. Some say one's better than the other. The thing with it is it's very easy to look at these games, I think, at a distance and say, yeah, it's big, it's JRPG style story, but what's really the hook? And it's all these small things that on their own make a pretty compelling game, but the fact that it just continues to introduce more and more, the cast never feels bloated, the humor's there, there's a couple of minor things I wish was different. You'll hear the same phrases time and time again, either after battle or before battle, but honestly, the fact that this game can push the Switch to such a limit that it never breaks the game, never slows down the game, fast travel works very well, walking to one end of the map to the other, it's such a seamless transition of a game, and I honestly can't believe I'm saying it, but I honestly think this could be my game of the year for 2022. Now, obviously, I'm gonna not say for sure, because I haven't beat the game just yet, but I wanted to get a video out early enough because this is such a massive game, you can't necessarily wait for me to get 200 hours into it. But at the same time, it's just hard not to say this is, at the very least, one of the best games of the year, and I truly think one of the best games that the Nintendo Switch has to offer. There's a lot of fun to be had in this. The music is incredible. Just when you think you can't love it any more than it is, you'll be fighting, sometimes it's not even like a boss fight, I'll just be fighting a random creature in the wilderness, and I'd be like, what is this music that I'm hearing? Like, why is it such a banger? But leave it to Xenoblade, man. This game is fantastic. It is gonna eat my life away for some time, and the fact that I purchased the first two as well, the next few months are gonna be Xenoblade fun for sure. But if anyone's been checking out Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I'd love to know what's your favorite build, characters that you've been enjoying, anything you're feeling about this game. I'd love to talk about it in the comments with you, so do let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.